All right, guys, welcome back to Commish'd. Here you can see we got our buddy Jeff joining us. He's going to be on, we're talking about the starts and sits, get someone else's perspective besides just Tom and I's. It's always good to have another opinion. And then we'll also be catching up. He's in Tom's league there as well, so we'll see how he's doing. Some trades that went down involving him as well, so catch that after. But for the first matchup that we're talking about, of course, always going to be the Thursday night game. That's going to be Detroit versus Green Bay. Jeff, being the guest, who do you love in this game?
I'd say Detroit. I think that's pretty straightforward. You got a new team, got Jordan Love running it. Aaron Jones with that injury, not necessarily knowing what he's going to bring to the table. It's Goff, but they got St. Brown. They're running pretty strong, so I like that team this year. I think they have a shot to be a contender with Minnesota this year.
Well, nice. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, to kind of echo what Jeff said, there's a lot of guys on Detroit that I would definitely be looking to start. Goff, he's just a fantastic fantasy quarterback, and a lot of people didn't really think about him. Amon-Ra St. Brown, you always have to start him. Jahmyr Gibbs, he's kind of teetering, start him or not start him. I thought last week he'd have a bigger impact with Montgomery out, but same idea is just kind of there. But I think a must start is Laporta at this point. Dude's a monster right now.
Yeah, he's definitely taken off. Number 2 tight end right now in fantasy, right behind Hawkinson. So, Goff loves his tight end, so you're never sitting him. This has a potential to be, decently high-scoring game. Jordan Love's been playing pretty decent. Watson's coming back. It'd be interesting to see how he does. You could flex him if you have him. I wouldn't expect, stud numbers at this point coming off injury.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens there. But, yeah, Aaron Jones, Watson.
This might just be because I have Aaron Jones on my team, but I think sitting him one more week last week kind of did him a lot of good. So I expect him coming back near 100%. I think he'll be out there balling.
Absolutely.
So you said Goff is a crazy fantasy quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Would you take him over Kirk Cousins? 1 p.m., by the way, Kirk Cousins.
No. Kirk Cousins is probably top 5 fantasy quarterback.
I agree, for sure.
He's just a monster, and all the weapons he has, too. So, yeah. But Goff, he's, like I said, a lot of people were not thinking about him. You can get him super late. Depending on who else you have, you can slide him right in for sure.
Yeah, true.
Agreed.
And then starting with the Sunday games, we got Atlanta versus Jacksonville.
London.
Jacksonville coming off an ugly game. Atlanta, they're kind of shaping out to be a solid team. With Atlanta, are we starting Pitts finally again, or?
I'm not.
No?
I think, what other shot do you have? What else are you going to work with? You have Bijan Robinson, you're trying to run with him. And by the way, don't slam any bets on that on DraftKings. I did that. Thought it was a gimme. Never met that end zone, so we'll leave that there. But, you have a running game, but it's still, you got Arthur Smith running as a head coach. It's still, they're still trying to think they figure things out. But, Pitts can be that top 5 10 if you need him to be. The man has proven his point. It's just, I think, figuring out those motions. But if you don't have anything else you're working with, you got to start him. You have to.
Yeah, and especially where most people took Pitts, at that point you're kind of in a position where you're not going to have another tight end who's going to be any more productive. So I guess you might as well slide him in and hope for the best. I actually saw a rumor today that the Dallas Cowboys were looking at Kyle Pitts.
That would be a good pickup, yeah. But when you also compare the 2 tight ends from Jacksonville, you got Ingram in Jacksonville and you got Pitts, that's kind of, night and day. But the production there, I think every owner would wish there was more there, and I think with time it will come. But it's it's that week to week where it's like you got to just stick it out because it's going to be that 1 week you don't start him, and that's going to kill you.
Yeah, and he's the only one I still trust with receiving wise for the Falcons. London's okay, but you're only flexing him if anything.
Yeah.
And then with Jacksonville, it's another game where you could literally start everyone.
Yeah.
Lawrence had it off game there with the loss, but he'll bounce back and be fine.
When is that going to be? That's the thing is, I know a lot of leagues, I was one of those people who, not in our league that we share, but in the one league I run is, I went with the approach this year, running backs, wide receivers, flex, everything to boost my offense. And then I wanted to go, quarterback late, and my eyes were on Lawrence. And right now, I'm working with Purdy, whose production's much better than Lawrence, which is weird to say. And I thought coming into the season, Jacksonville was going to I thought Jackson was going to be a shoo-in, almost the number 1 seed in the AFC, just because they played the South, and what's going on there right now is kind of crazy.
Sometimes when you have too much talent, it takes a little bit to work it all in there, and they'll start shaping out. I mean, Ridley, this is another game. I think he'll be
fast,
solid.
man, fast.
Yeah, he is.
I think Zay Jones comes back, but I'm not starting him at all. ETN will have another big game.
You want to trade him?
No, I don't want to trade him yet.
Cool.
I almost had a trade with ETN this last week.
Yeah. And then, there's really no one that I'm sitting for Jacksonville. It's really just with the Falcons. There's only a couple people you can plug in there at this point. And then next up is a juicy matchup. We got the Bills and the Dolphins.
How is this not prime time?
There was talks about if they should flex it, but
I'd rather it be the 1 o'clock
just
game.
get it out.
They don't have a lot this year. There's not a lot of Bills 1 o'clock games.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's going to be a crazy. Here's the thing with this. Instead of fantasy, if I'm betting, I'm taking the over on all points.
Yep.
But it's going to be one of those games where it might be 22-17 or something dumb.
It's a divisional game. That's the one thing I keep in mind. And the crazy fact is that Tua has always lost to the Bills except for one game, and that was, we all know what game that was.
Right.
It's hard to, we're talking about starting and sitting them, but I could spend probably an hour-long conversation with you guys about this game and the do's and the don'ts and my opinions and what it may be. I don't think there's anyone that you sit on either side of this ball. I think it's too much. It's like I said, it's a divisional game. It's not going to be a 70-point game again. That's the Buffalo's never going to want that. McDermott's leading that defense to the right mentality, physical, everything they need.
No.
It's pretty straightforward that it's not going to be last week's performance, but you need all hands on deck for both sides of both sides.
You do need last week's performance from the Bills D though.
Yeah.
You need them to step up and be good. But like you said, there's nobody on either team that I'm sitting.
No. Except for the defenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Yeah, no, that's
Bills D, yeah.
Yeah. This is the game where James Cook gets in the end zone.
I
better hope so.
It's happening.
Does Kincaid when does Kincaid step up? Because I guess at that point where you say starting to sit him, maybe that's the one that I can think maybe sitting this week because
he got 2 passes last week.
Right, coming into the draft, you guys, I could be wrong, but I didn't see, leading up to the draft, Kincaid wasn't on a radar that anyone, like low key they had him, but they drafted him, and great for them. I just don't think that two tight end setup is there yet, and it could be very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't necessarily know if it's Dorsey, whatever it may be. But I guess when you're really kind of thinking through things, is if I had to pick that tight end position, Knox or Kincaid, I guess I'm going with Knox this week. You have to.
I wish Dorsey would scheme Kincaid like the Lions are scheming up for Laporta.
Yeah.
Like he's getting some awesome routes and everything for Kincaid is just a quick dump off.
The one thing
I'm not going to do much with that.
The one thing I always thought of too is like you had that Hernandez and you had that Gronkowski setup.
Yep.
That could be that. Granted, different circumstances and outcomes, but that could be that setup with Josh Allen behind center. And, you still have other options to fall through. Now, again, I don't want to get carried away about, we could ramble on for hours, but I think Kincaid for me would be who you would sit. Another fantasy bust is Harris.
Yeah.
I did draft him thinking that from leaving New England, the matchup in Buffalo, granted, there's a lot of, backfield there, but I thought Harris would be your third down back, punching in the end zone there. And, right now he's projected, I think, 2.8 points. So what do you do with that?
Right. I know it's tough with Murray. He's a bigger back. He's getting that third down goal line.
Good for him, though. At his age,
do what you need to do. That's all you need him to do.
Yep.
And then next up, you got Minnesota and the Panthers. We just kind of hit on. Kirk, you got to start that guy. Him and Jefferson are crazy right now. Hawkinson, obviously, you're starting him. I don't know about the running back situation that's going to happen in Minnesota yet.
No.
You're definitely not starting Akers yet. You got to see what happens.
Good pickup, though.
Yeah.
Very
I don't like any of the running backs in this matchup right now.
You could be flexing Addison, though.
You could.
I think.
We can hold on to that ball. That's the other thing. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. He did have a decent fantasy performance, but it's just, I don't know. It's not transpiring on the field for him, and he's getting a lot of negative attention, which I usually don't like to see.
Yeah.
And then, with the Minnesota, there's another team where there's not too many people that you're sitting for them. With Carolina, I mean, Thielen popped off.
Yeah, good
I mean,
week. Yeah.
definitely can keep him up there.
And that's the other thing I would think through. Thielen, it's against Minnesota.
Yep.
He shined there, and last week he did have a great performance. And you got that veteran wide receiver who knows what he's doing out there. If you can get the ball in his hand, and you know what, maybe if is it Dalton going in this week?
If he is, you're definitely starting.
You have to start him. I also think too the style quarterback you have with these newer rookie class that they're more fancy on their feet than they are with their arms. And you don't always get them a Holmes or Allen or like that behind where you can manage both. But if Dalton, he's kind of that old school quarterback where he's willing to make those passes and willing to take those chances to capitalize on that. And Thielen showed up. I think you have to start Thielen. I don't think there's anything you can do. Sanders, that's...
He had a good week last week.
Good week last week, but
17. But
it's just... it's the consistency piece there. And I just think that offense is so young that they're trying to figure out what is consistent for them, what makes sense for them, how they can execute on that. So I think week to week is, you don't really find Sanders in free agency. Like, you can pick him up on the waivers. But I also think you can either put him in a flex or maybe decide to bench him depending on who else is on your bench. That makes sense because it's 1 o'clock. Kirk Cousins, he's going to ball out. You have Addison. I'd like to see him evolve a little bit more. I know it's tough on the opposite side. You have, arguably one of the best wide receivers, if not the best, Jefferson. It's
could turn into one of the best wide receiver duos, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks good.
I mean, I thought, and I was all for it in the draft class that, any team, Buffalo or anything like that, could go after him. That could be that deep threat. I mean, the man knows, if he can stay out of trouble, he's going to be good.
Yeah, for sure.
But it'll be interesting to match up I'd like to see that Thielen piece and how that all kind of, rolls together.
Yeah, and even if it is Dalton still quarterback, I mean, Shark gets a little bit of an upgrade. You can flex him most likely, but that's...
It's good because he's willing to throw that ball.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to do that. And
there's no risk involved.
Yeah, and at this point, you can honestly say that quarterback position's up for grabs. I mean, if Dalton can continue to do what he's going to do and put up points like that, I mean, why not? I mean,
let your rookie learn.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you're bringing in that rookie, you're bringing in that veteran, just like the Jets did with Zinian and rolling with Zach. So see.
The next matchup is where two quarterbacks do need to learn a little bit here. I mean, Fields, I have no idea what's going on with him. Blame the coaches, not blame himself. You can tell DJ's frustrated.
This game's in the running for poo-poo matchup.
Oh, for sure.
Has to be.
The Broncos letting up 70 points, that should not ever happen. Ever happen.
No.
And Chicago, everybody had these huge aspirations about them in the offseason, and they've come out and they've looked terrible. Yeah. I don't...
It's surprising to me, too, because you have Sean Payton, who will go down as a Hall of Fame coach. I mean, I think everyone at this table can agree with that. I think this is really kind of showing how well Pete Carroll handled Russell Wilson. You're still starting Russell Wilson, no matter what you do. Unless you have someone there, you got to roll with Russell Wilson because he will ball out eventually. Yeah. With Jerry Jeudy in the mix, you're kind of getting everyone back to pieces. Yeah. But then on the flip side, you have Chicago, and you have Justin Fields, who, like we said, thought was going to ball out and he was going to do great. And look who his offensive coordinator is. Okay? What are we doing here? You know what I mean? You expected more, and what was it? In the offseason, they picked up, was it Moore?
Yep.
Yeah, they picked up Moore, DJ Moore. And I remember listening in the offseason to this, it was a podcast, and how they said, the culture, everything's shifting. And that all makes sense in the beginning of the season. Yeah. But he had me, on the same page. He was going to ball out. He's going to do great. And it's they literally look like a peewee division out there. It's awful.
There was so many analysts predicting Justin Fields to be MVP.
MVP, oh yeah.
Absolutely not.
I will say this, I'm not going to give a start and sit because I think, like you said, this is an awful game. But I will say, if you are in any survival leagues, this is not the game to pick.
Absolutely not.
No way.
It's one of those ones, you don't want to start anyone from either of these if you don't have to.
But the problem is
you probably took someone.
People probably took Fields early.
And I picked Jeudy. I'll be the first to admit I have Jeudy on my bench. I thought
he was hurt though.
He was hurt.
Yeah, he'll be okay.
But you think about Jeudy, no one passes by Jerry Jeudy. He could be a stud. I just don't know if. Yeah. I don't know. Like Denver, I really thought was going to come out stronger than they were, and they're a joke right now. They really are.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a starting wide receiver, the number one, and you have no other option, yes, you start them regardless who they're facing. But this, if you have other options,
start with the other options.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I would start Adam Thielen over anyone on this receiver.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then we got Baltimore against the Browns. This could be a defensive battle type game.
Yeah.
I get that Amari Cooper popped off last week. I don't see that happening again against the Ravens. But, I mean, if you have them, you're starting them. I still don't want anything to do with the Browns' backfield yet until there's a clear cut, like what's going on.
Ford had a good game. He did 2 touchdowns last week.
But now, once you start getting more
Kareem
games with Hunt involved, are they going to actually split? Is he going to carry still?
Kind of a wait and see game.
Right, yeah. Just hold off. I mean, you can start Ford probably this week if you needed to. That's about it I'm doing with the Browns. I mean, Ravens. I mean, you're still starting Flowers, Lamar. You can't sit him. Andrews. That could be a big Andrews game. Same thing, running backs. I don't want anything to do with the Ravens running backs.
Odell, I'm not, even if he plays, I'm not touching him right now.
Too much personality there.
Yeah.
Kind of piggyback off what you're saying, the whole Ford thing in many leagues. I remember one of the leagues that I'm a commissioner for where we're out last week and like 3 of my buddies who are on the same league were like, oh, Ford. Now in our league, you have a budget. So it's a $200 budget. You spend $1, you spend $200, whatever you want to do. Well, my brother-in-law, he went in and he spent, I forget whatever value it was. I was like, you know what? I could probably use Ford as trade bait, so I'll put some money in there. And I'm not the type of person, like, it's a 10-man league, so the options out there in waivers typically is not a lot. Yeah. But if you could pick someone like that to use and help yourself trade for something better, do it. Well, we went in waivers next day, no one got them. Well, come to find out, someone else did in the league, and how much money they spent on them, that's their choice. But I'm like, it's kind of the same thing, like with the Hunt, even when Chubb was playing, they split that backfield so much. And like obviously Chubb's your number one. He's going to get most of the carries. But depending on those carries, he's not getting those touchdowns unless he's breaking off. And, that's the tough thing. Deshaun Watson, what are we doing?
He doesn't know how to throw.
He's raking in every dollar with that guaranteed money, and he looks clueless out there. Like, a few years off, I get it, whatever, but, like, at this point, like, he's hurting that team more than helping. So I'm definitely...
I said this last week. I said this to Ian. In his time off, I literally think he forgot how to throw a football.
Wouldn't it surprise me, but I'm benching him.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, at this point, I'd rather... I can't think of a different... I mean, I would be willing to play Justin Fields over Deshaun Watson right now. I know that we just said we're not touching anyone out of that game, but like Deshaun Watson to me is just like a deer in headlights. Like you can't rely on him, and like that may be a stretch with the field, but like that's how much I am against him as a starting quarterback there.
There's other options that you can even get off of waivers and stuff.
Oh,
like
for sure.
CJ Stroud, he's been fantastic the last
few weeks. He's
available.
Yeah.
I even thought that with the South, Jacksonville's going to run with it, but right now Houston's showing up and they know what they're doing, man. Their head coach, great.
Right.
I think Baltimore, that's the same thing, like across the field. Like I agree with you. I was going to say the same thing. I think Andrews, this is his time to really step up and remind the league who he is, because he is a solid tight end. But with Waller and you have Kelsey and you have all these other tight ends, he kind of like faded out. You know what I mean? Like faded out. But I think it's an easy game. Side of that backfield for both teams.
Yeah.
I even say the whole North, really, when you think about it. Like, Cincinnati, like, okay, Mixon, but, like, that whole North division with their running backs, Harris still hasn't popped off yet.
Yeah.
No. That whole North division's running backs are a little iffy right now.
Yeah. Which brings us actually to our next matchup with the Steelers in Houston. That's another one where
I'm starting Pittsburgh's D. That's it.
Yeah. With Pittsburgh, I mean, Pickens is the only one worth even considering at this point.
Pickett, he can't throw.
Yeah, but they highlighted him. They were all about him in the preseason. They thought he was going to run that division. And I'm a big fan of Mike Tomlin. He's never had a losing season. I think he was a great replacement when Bill Cowher retired. Yeah. But it's still the same thing. Like, you have Pickett to Pickens. Don't get the two confused because I always do. But I like Pickens, and I do
Trade for him.
think well, hey, we'll talk, but I do think Pickens could even be a better wide receiver if he had a reliable quarterback.
100%. Dude's a monster.
In Harris, I have him in one league, and I mean, obviously, I'm not benching him for a RB2 typically, but I was definitely hoping for more production out of him. I mean, it is week 4. I will say that's a lot. But offensively, Pickens, Harris, echo you, defense, Houston,
Nico Collins, Tank Dell.
Yeah, he's shaping out to be. You don't know who's going to be number 1 by the next couple weeks.
Such a young team too.
Yeah.
And that's the exciting piece about Houston is that from the head coach down to the players, I think it's a crapshoot on what to expect week to week. I think they're learning as they go, which makes it even more exciting as a culture and as a team, and which kind of keeps us guessing in fantasy. Who can you rely on week to week? You may not necessarily know of them. You may not know what week they're going to have, but time and time again, they're standing out so far in that division, the South for sure.
Yeah, this is a game I can see Pierce popping off for a decent PPR show with a lot of catches.
People are hoping so.
Yeah, Watt's going to be coming in hot.
Oh yeah.
But there's not too much to go over with that one. And then you got the Rams against the Colts.
Bring back Taylor. Get that man on a team. He's sitting on my bench. Get him back.
I mean, two more weeks we'll know what's going on.
I'm surprised Baltimore didn't take on Taylor. To be honest with you, I was shocked.
You don't want to pay him.
Yeah.
That's tough.
And then this game still, I guess with the Rams, you still got Puka. You're starting him. You have to.
I think that's really it. And they're running back, Kerryon Williams.
Yeah, he's been
starting both
solid.
of them.
I mean, Stafford's been decent if you need a quarterback, not crazy. I mean, I'd start if you had a golf or something. Back. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Could be okay if you're hurting for a tight end. With the Colts, I mean, Moss has been solid.
I love Moss this year. He's, I mean, like we said, we'll get to it, but kind of a preview of what we traded for. So
yeah.
Richardson's playing, right?
Yeah, I think he's playing.
If
he's gotten hurt in both games he's played.
How do you feel about Richardson?
I like him.
It's kind of like what happened with Josh Allen the first year. He tried doing a lot, running a lot, didn't slide when he should, was taking the big hits.
Reminds me of RG3.
Yeah.
That's kind of my concern is don't go out and be Superman.
Yeah.
2 weeks into your career, you're young, and I get that. But at the same time,
team, hey, I'm here,
Yeah.
But already 3 weeks in, you're in concussion protocol, basically. That's
True.
There's a sense of being aggressive and competitive and leading your team, and then there's a point of getting injured and potentially putting your team at harm and risk and not being able to play. So I think there's that fine line. But I mean, fantasy wise, I don't love Richardson in fantasy, and I think it's because I have enough tape in the pros. Because you can show me as much college tape as you want, but we both know pros is totally different. So I mean, with time, maybe he'll be that quarterback that you're you love in fantasy, but. Until then, I just think the Colts are the Colts. Zach Moss to me is the team. That's keep relying on him, pound that ball, baby. That's all we need.
I mean, that's the thing too. Any quarterback with rushing ability, though, but you got to think too. Richardson was running a lot because they didn't have any running back at that point. Moss was out.
Moss was out.
Came back. Yeah. So, but Moss, Pittman. I mean, those are your guys you're starting there. And then next up you got the Bucks, and then the Saints. I don't think Carr is going to play, so it's going to be Winston. This could be a Michael Thomas type of game. I mean, Olave still will be okay, but don't
Kamara's
expect him
first
to
game
get
back.
huge. Yeah. I mean, Kamara, he's been there. It's not like he's new to the team, so I don't think he's going to miss a beat.
And
So
with Jamal Williams being out, there's not really going to be much competition there.
Not at all. And then for the Bucks, I mean...
Mike Evans,
Godwin, of course. Godwin's going to start, I think, being the dude.
I think he has to at some point. He has to get more targets.
Yeah. That catch from Evans last night.
Oh, that was unbelievable.
Crazy.
Reminded me of myself, honestly.
I'm getting crushed on half or what?
And then with White, I'm starting to peel back a little bit. If you got better options, I've even been trading them in leagues. So
I wish somebody on here called that.
What about Baker?
He's not doing bad.
You know what you're getting out of Baker. I mean, he's going to get you your 15 to 19 points as a quarterback. He's not going to get
There
you
might be
negative.
better options.
Definitely better options.
I mean, there's a different sense of player in him. I think from Cleveland, till here, like he looks confident.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that offensive line. They once Brady retired, they didn't want to put anybody in that offensive line, and you still have. I mean, think about it. You had Godwin, you had Evans, and then of course you had Gronk and Brady, and that's a huge drop off. But you still have Evans, and you still have Godwin. That's still a good 1-2 combo there.
Yeah.
And last night's game, I don't know if it was weather related or because I don't think Philly's D is that great, but
they lost a lot of people.
Yeah, like they gave that ball away last night. They gave that game away. It probably should have been a closer game.
Yeah.
But for the Saints, it's going to be basically they're reuniting. You get Winston. You have Thomas, you have Kamara. The only thing you're missing is Sean Payton.
Yeah.
So I think the Saints will be in good shape for this game. I think this is the Kamara coming back is huge for that offense. So I mean, I think you start that whole team, and I don't think the Bucs can afford to not do anything different than they did yesterday, but show up at least.
Right. And then next up, we got Washington against the Eagles. Washington that's bad.
Yeah.
Scary
they
Terry.
started 2-0, and people were high on them, and then they got humbled.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah. I'm still starting Brian Robinson, though.
Oh, for sure. I love him.
I'd flex him, just because, you'll probably have some better options than him, but definitely flex him. He's been a monster. Maybe Scary Terry.
That's the only.
Depending on who you have. He's not getting the volume.
No. With this, if the score gets out of hand, he'll have to.
Yeah.
But other than that, you're not touching anyone else.
That whole team, though, is on a new organization from owners down, new quarterback, Sam Howell. He doesn't look awful.
I think he'll be, give him a few years,
okay.
I think he'll be solid.
I think he's got I think there's a lot of adjustments there, like what you need to figure out. But again, you got to figure it out one way or another. And you think Terry, a year or two ago, he was a stud. He can catch that ball. He's proven his worth. I'm a big fan of Brian Robinson. I have him in a few leagues. Definitely starting him. But it's a newer team, so to sit here and kind of pick apart who you start and sit, it's...
Scary Terry's, he's kind of in the same boat as Pickens for me.
Yeah.
If he had a different quarterback, I think he could be a top 5 receiver in the league.
For sure.
He's a monster. It's just, Howell's he's a rookie.
Yeah.
You got to give him some time to get in there, get used to everything, get used to the pros, but yeah.
Right. With the Eagles, it's another one of those teams you can start everyone.
Yeah.
There's no one that you're really sitting there.
Big drop-off, though, from the Super Bowl.
A little bit.
I don't think... I hate the crutch of, they said Hurts had the flu last night, and it's this and it's that.
Yeah.
I'd still take Jalen Hurts as a quarterback in fantasy. That's not... That's not no question there. But, then you have you have A.J. Brown. You have Devontae Smith. You have your running back, which... It's great for fantasy. I love it.
Yeah.
But, man, the problem with that is it's similar to New England. Is like you can ball out, have a great game, but then 3 quarters in, you're sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Like last night, Swift never got in the end zone once. You know what I mean? That's... I was hoping for that just because of fantasy, but at the same time, it's like they have a lot of running backs.
Yeah.
You definitely got to start. Yeah, too many, exactly. So you definitely... I don't think there's one player on that team that you can start or that you don't sit. They've proven their worth time to time. I just think that there's something that's holding that team back, but,
I definitely don't think they're the best team in the NFC.
No, it's got to be the 49ers.
I 100%
Absolutely.
agree with
And
that.
and we'll get to it with Purdy, but that's even more impressive to me.
For me, though, A.J. Brown, he's had an off year. You have to plug him in.
Yeah.
Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Goddard, too.
Yeah.
Smith is a better wide receiver right now than Brown. Smith is literally hitting my parlays every week. I don't have him in any fantasies, but I've been taking Smith in parlays just because he's good for 70-plus yards.
The running back situation, though, in Philly, they can go off like Swift did 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But if they don't, they're getting single-digit points.
Yeah.
That's the tough part. You got to kind of say, hey, do you want to risk it, or do you want to plug somebody else and that is going to get you a solid 12 to 14?
Yeah.
And let me be clear, when I drafted Swift, I didn't think I was going to get these results this early in the year. I knew he was going to be probably like a flex or maybe even like a backup, like for a bye week, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And then, you know what, I just took the chance week 1, and ever since I've been rolling with it. I mean, I'm happy with the results, but I imagine it's going to slow down at some point this year.
True. Then we got the Bengals and the Titans. I mean,
Bengals are in trouble.
Why did they start
That's what I said.
Burrow yesterday? Like, you just paid your quarterback and rest him. Like, it doesn't, like, last night's game didn't matter. It wasn't a divisional game. God forbid he got hurt even more. He's like, you're screwed. Like your season's done. Like,
he looked terrible last night.
No, awful.
And, like, you can tell he's not right.
And that's taking effect on Chase. I mean, look about it. Like, everyone's like Chase. I know everyone's, early on in the season it was, Justin Jefferson, Chase, Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Like it's I think it's preference at that point in life, but man, the people who decide to take the other two out of Chase must be happy right now. I do think in time they'll pick up. I just don't think they're immediate threat, but I say right now, you bench Burrow. You have to bench Burrow.
Yeah.
See, I'm the opposite.
Really?
I just went out and traded for him right now because of these bad games.
You ever heard of
have to pick it up.
You ever heard of those sites where you look up for fantasy help?
Yeah.
You might want to invest in that. Yeah. But anyways, we'll get to that.
I can't think that this team paid this man so much money and he just forgot how to play football.
So I think his injuries just holding him back.
I can't. It's going to turn around. It might not be against Tennessee, but it's going to happen.
But that's what I mean. Like
Go
ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I say Tennessee. They stink, right?
You got nothing to lose.
Why play him?
Or that's a confidence game right there. If that's what they think it is.
But last night should have been a confidence game. The Rams aren't great.
I just think, and I really think there's more to that injury than we think, because he heard it in training camp, and everyone, you know how social media is, everyone is a doctor at that point. They called it a calf. Could have been like a mild, ACL, MCL sprain. Sure, it could be. I mean, but they're getting off with that. And then he re-injured again that quickly. You know what I mean? Like, so either wasn't rested as much as they were, or there's more to it than they're trying to find, because Burrow is their backbone to that team. Like, without Burrow, you got nothing. And, like, it's the same thing with most of the team. Like, remove Mahomes from Kansas City. Remove Allen from Buffalo.
Yeah.
Don't kill me for saying that. But,
you're right.
It's those things. So, but, like, when you're playing Tennessee, you have Ryan Tannehill, who... he's got to be one of the most oldest quarterbacks in the NFL.
That's
he's been it. And don't get me wrong, Tannehill used to ball out fantasy-wise. Fantasy point-wise, he used to ball out. It's just leading me to Derrick Henry. That's what I really want to talk about this team. What happened to Derrick Henry?
He's getting old.
Worn down, man.
He just doesn't even run that ball. Like, he won what? Often, what was it? Was MVP, was it? A few years back?
No.
What title did he...
just a Russian league.
Maybe rushing out, or whatever it was. But he stood out. So he stood out. And since then, he just...
I think it's what Ian just said, though. He was getting so much value
Yeah.
after so many years.
He doesn't look as quick at all. I mean, he's still big and strong, but he's not.
But production-wise, when we talk about starting and sitting him, can you afford, if you're in the league right now, can you afford to start Derrick Henry? Depending on what you're working with on your bench, but at the same time...
I feel like where you drafted Henry, you have to start him because you probably took him round 1 or 2.
And you'd be foolish not. I mean, of course, everyone would.
You're trading him.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Before this game, if you can.
Big time trade,
but
100%.
But yeah, he's not at the point where you can't sit him yet. But with the Titans, they're a team where...
used to be a threat.
You have to flex somebody, sure, maybe D-Hop, but that's it.
I
Him and
think
Henry are
D-Hop's
only
past
two.
his prime, too.
Yeah, it's an old team. Like you just said with Tannehill, they're all old and slow.
Yeah.
And then with the Bengals, I mean, Chase, Higgins, Mixon, those three you can.
Sit Burrow, for sure.
With Burrow, though, you probably, same thing, where you drafted him, you might not have a better option at quarterback.
But again, like we said before, if you check waivers, you can, like CJ Stroud, he's gonna be available. There's gonna be guys available. I honestly think, I don't know, I thought the Bengals should have sat him last game. I think they should sit him this game.
Burrow's putting up 32
teams
this game.
Threats.
32.
I bet you $100 he doesn't.
So we got the Raiders and the Chargers. Raiders, Adams and Jacobs.
You starting Jacobs?
You have to. Jimmy G's done. He's out. Concussion.
Yeah.
You got nothing else to work with. You're not going to. You don't have anything else. You have to start Jacobs.
That's another thing, where you took him,
you have to, and at the same time, it's you're playing the Chargers, which Brandon Staley. If I could sit him, I'd sit him as a coach because he needs to go. Like, just the decisions that he makes is having major impact on Herbert. Don't get me wrong. By the way, Keenan Allen last week, monster, right? Like, and you don't see that production week to week, or I would have never, did what I did today. But you start him, like, and everything else on the Raiders side of things. If you don't have Jimmy G, which don't get me wrong, Jimmy G isn't your.
Yeah, he's not amazing.
He's not your end all be all. But again, you're starting him over. Okay, Russell Wilson,
Derek Carr.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like those type of quarterbacks. So yes, you have that, but when you're down, just kind of like as much as you say no, like you're like right now, I consider Joe Burrow out with how much he's basically holding that team back. You got to rely on others, and right now the Raiders have to rely on Josh Jacobs.
Right.
And it's crazy. As much as you go rely on him, Adams wants that ball more. He doesn't believe in that culture. He doesn't even. I mean, the man doesn't want to be there.
He wasn't happy after last game.
No, but same thing for me and the Chargers. Hopefully Eckler's back soon.
Yeah,
That's
I think he's playing this week.
That's a big thing for me.
Or not. I don't know if they have or not.
I mean, he's like projected already like 18 points.
That's what I mean. If you don't bench him, obviously that's not even a conversation.
And Mike Williams being done for the year now, that opens the door for Eckler, Keenan Allen, Josh
Palmer.
Palmer's on waivers in a lot of leagues.
Yeah.
You're grabbing him quick.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
It might not transpire this week, but over time. I mean, last year.
Has to, especially if you're working. Obviously, if you don't have Allen, then
I just get him so nobody else can.
Yep, defense.
Stash him.
That was like Ford. Like I said, I wanted to use it for other purposes.
Another game that's, not that exciting. The Patriots in Dallas.
I think the Patriots could give Dallas some problems.
If the defense shows up like they did against
Arizona,
Dallas.
Against
Arizona last week. I don't think the Patriots will beat the Cowboys, but.
Do you think there's any fantasy team, 10-man league, let me make that clear, in a 10-man league, anyone starting Mac Jones?
No.
Okay. Because if you do, you got to bench him. And if you are playing Mac Jones, I question why you weren't fantasy football.
I don't think
just
in
a big fan of Mac Jones.
Yeah.
In a 10-man league, I don't think many people would have Mac Jones on their team.
No, I don't think so either, but I've seen crazier things. But again, I would bench Mac Jones.
100%.
Zeke.
Sitting.
I don't know, and here's why. So reports came out all this week that Cowboys had concerns that Zeke knew the playbook.
Yep.
And their quarterback they just signed as
Will Greer
that they knew too many insides.
Yeah.
Could this be the week that Belichick utilizes Zeke? Because prior to this week, last 3 weeks, you benched Zeke. And you have Monday Stevenson, which you rely on him. But it's years past, like you don't know what you're going to get out of that backfield.
It's his old team. That's Belichick does that.
That's who he uses.
Grinding him out the whole game. Yeah.
So I think I would start Zeke in this game. I think that makes sense. And then on the flip side, Cowboys. Everyone, right?
Yeah,
like
there's no one.
What's your opinion? Yeah, you have Lamb. What's your opinion on Lamb this year so far?
I like him. I just traded him in.
Like personally, you know him?
Yeah, I know him. He's a good friend of mine.
He was on the pod.
Him and Dak. That's an okay stack to have if you have both of them in fantasy. The production isn't where it was supposed to be at so far. What they were talking about, like he's going to be this amazing guy with Brandon Cooks going there and Dak having all these weapons, and it just hasn't transpired yet. He's getting a ton of targets though.
I just don't know. I can't take Dak leading my squad.
100%. I don't have
because I don't. It's so hit or miss with him week to week. Yeah, I love Lamb. Like he would be a stud on that and like on my team. But at the same time, it's so far leading into this. Like he would be. One of my leagues, I took Brock Purdy over him. You know what I mean? Like because I just don't think he's going to lead that production that I need. So
he'd be someone like Derrick Henry, who I'd be kind of. Saying about trades.
So, obviously not knowing, and it's tough to say who's on your bench. So, of course, you're going to start them. But, if I had someone that I could seriously consider back, like C.J. Stroud, for example. You didn't take him high. No. But right now, if I had Stroud on my bench, I'd put Stroud in over Dak this week.
Yep.
Because New England's defense, as much as a joke of an offense they have, New England still has a good defense.
They held Miami to 24.
Yeah.
You know?
True. Yeah, this would be. I think it's going to be. I could see a Zeke Pollard like face-off running back match. That'd be sweet to see at least.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, so if NFL scripted, that's a great script right there, guys. And then you got Cardinals and San Fran. Here's your Brock Purdy.
My Brock Purdy. Shout out to my brother-in-law. He's coaching there now.
Really?
Yeah, he's in the offense. But and aside of him, Brock Purdy, I love seeing last year, and I do believe if he didn't get injured, they'd be Super Bowl team. I do. I think they're electric. They're exciting. They're smart. Shanahan's a good coach. It comes from those genes from his father. And prior to that, when he was, Mike Shanahan was in Denver. But there's not one person on that team I'm benching. You can't. They're the team to watch right now. And yeah, they're going to take a loss here and there, and it's a good humbling thing. But it's against Arizona.
They're not losing.
Dobbs. Dobbs, I saw this thing where he was trying to go get a jersey for a fan and he wasn't even in their system. I don't know if that was just made up or not. I'm like, right, but it was funny.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have Josh Dobbs. That's what you're doing. And you have Hollywood Brown out there, which same conversation. We talked about Pickens and, you talked about these other wide receivers, just like Lamb. Hollywood Brown still has it, man. I definitely think if he had a good quarterback, and I'm not even putting Murray in a good quarterback conversation. No. Even when he was healthy, he was all over the place, man.
Yeah.
Even when Hollywood played for the Ravens, Lamar isn't the passing quarterback.
No, but he still got him the ball.
Yeah.
It's him. He's getting targets and making the most of them.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
That's the thing. Is sure, it's great if you get a ton of targets, but if you're not doing anything with him, and he's the one he's getting a lot and doing the best.
Hollywood Brown could be equivalent to Addison in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that could be, if you had a quarterback that can provide that volume consistently. But Arizona is restructuring their whole team too, from Murray on. Who knows what Murray's recovery timeline is going to be like. They're talking 2024, and I don't know. I mean, with them getting rid of Cliff last year, and it's just kind of a mess right now in Arizona.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt San Francisco, Debo, shout out to him.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
But yeah, there's not one player on the team you can't think to play on both sides of that ball.
Yes, but even the defense.
Probably sitting McCaffrey though.
He might have 40 points in the half.
Maybe.
And then the Cardinals, I guess James Conner too. You're starting him. He's the
nobody
only
else
one.
gets the ball.
Yeah.
But that's my only concern. I guess that kind of goes back to the Josh Jacobs conversation. I think Josh can produce a little bit more than Connor does, because at that point, you're playing the Chargers defense. Okay, that's not a big deal to me. You're playing San Francisco's defense. Mm-hmm. This is almost like practice. This is going to be like a practice game to them. Even though, I'm telling you, it's a divisional game, right? But it just doesn't, to me, it's like a practice game. They just don't, there's not even a competition there.
No. I mean, PPR-wise, Connor gets, a decent amount of catches there.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not a fan of Arizona.
Right, I don't blame you. And then we got the Chiefs and the Jets. You're not playing anyone with the Jets right now.
Aaron Rodgers.
Even with Garrett Wilson now. No. I mean, Zach Wilson's done.
I was offered a trade for Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson for Jordan Addison. I turned it down.
Yeah. Can't right now.
Nope. Doesn't report.
Not starting anyone there. I mean, the Chiefs.
As if you would take on.
I would get Garrett Wilson. Yeah. I'd be giving up.
I would start Aaron Rodgers.
If you can get him.
He's fine.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. He's underground right now, just meditating.
He might put up more points than Zach Wilson.
He probably would.
Who's worse, Zach Wilson or Mac Jones?
Zach
Wilson. Right now.
Yeah. Man, it's Kansas City.
Yeah.
And I still think Kansas City, they always start off slow and they get hot. And again, this is going to be kind of like what I use an example of the San Francisco game. It's practice to them. That's all it is. They can, they benched Mahomes, third quarter of last week because they were up so much. At this point, you're in that same boat and you do the same thing. Obviously, they got to come out with the W just for the sake of the division, obviously for the AFC. But
and they got all the Swifties in their corner now, too.
Yeah, shout out to Taylor Swift.
Carrie Underwood's better, though.
Oh, no doubt.
There's no one you're sitting for the Chiefs right now. And then the last game
Except
you got...
Tony.
Tony.
Yeah.
He's you just
You
waivers,
can cut it.
right? And you got the Seahawks and the Giants. I mean, it's gonna be a fun game. I mean, the Giants.
They haven't said if Barkley's coming back yet.
No.
They won't say.
And I think Dable has a big task ahead of him. I mean, yeah, they turned that team around last year. They made it to the playoffs, but their offense looks messy right now.
Yeah.
It's not pretty. Seattle too. You know, I just don't think either side of the ball. Your team's kind of out of sorts. You really forfeit sitting any starter, and that goes the same thing when you think about your starters on both sides of that ball. That anyone worth, Kenneth Walker, for example, had a great game last week. You know what I mean? But like, I end up benching Geno Smith for Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
And obviously it's worked out in my favor, but Geno's not the Geno that was last year. So I would bench. I mean, I can afford to bench Geno because I have Purdy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, on the Giants side, the only reason why I have Barkley on the bench is because he's hurt. But
Yeah. I mean, if he comes back, yes, you're starting him.
100%.
you have the option to pick up Breida, but I don't think he's going to be even remotely close to.
He's getting you like 10 points when he's starting.
And that was my problem with the Jets, with running back.
Brees Hall.
Brees Hall. Sorry, I couldn't think of his name for a minute there.
You're welcome.
Brees Hall just last week put up 2 points.
Yeah.
And like, I definitely think he would have been used differently, and if Aaron Rodgers was behind center, and he would have been a very good running back to deal with.
Yeah.
I just think with Zach Wilson looking like a deer in headlights back there, he doesn't know what he's doing, and you know, Robert Saleh finally made it wise to sit. Well, let me use the word wise. That word wisely, taking on Trevor Siemian. Like, but at the same time, that organization's. What are you gonna do? Just tank and just get another player? You know, moving in toward Rodgers. We're on the same page. Rodgers coming back next year, right?
I'm not.
No, really. I think he's got a point to prove. I think he. You didn't go to the
If you
Jets.
look at his
He
age,
proved his point,
if
got
you
his
look at
money.
his age and then the injury, like that's a tough injury to come back from.
I agree. I just don't know if you go out leaving on a. No pun intended, but you don't go out on that injury, not being able to play for the Jets. There's so much hype. Like, think about leading in. Granted, living in Buffalo, you know, all we heard about was that because of week one. And, you know, the Jets obviously took away the W there. But at the same time, I definitely think Rodgers still has it in him. I do think he has that because in Green Bay, he didn't have anything to prove. He was literally just week after week just going with emotions.
I just see him breaking down though, like in training camp. Both of his calves, he had injuries to both of his calves, and then like his third, fourth snap, Achilles. Like I just think he's broken.
I just want to be able to bet on that
He's
injury.
fragile.
It's no incentive. Like,
fragile.
if he never won a Super Bowl or anything, maybe
Yeah,
he'd
then
be
he'd
like, all
come
right,
back.
let me try one more hurrah. But
Let's recap this when he comes back.
yeah,
All right,
okay.
cool. Okay, cool.
Yeah, with the Giants and Seahawks, I mean, you're starting DK, Lockett, Geno. If you have someone better, sure, you can sit up
Are you
against the
starting
Giants.
Lockett though?
I mean,
What-
against the Giants, why not?
I don't know.
I mean,
not
I'm
a big
even
Lockett
starting-
guy this year.
I'm even starting Waller if I have.
Ooh, you lost me.
I
Yeah,
know you
lost
hate
it
him,
there.
but
You lost me.
I'm telling you,
So don't listen
This-
to Ian.
this week it's Burrow and Waller.
I thought
Those are your two
I
guys.
thought Waller going to the Giants this year
Would be
was good,
Yeah.
knowing what they were able to do last year. But it's a different team.
Yeah.
Him
It's a
and
different
Pitts-
team.
Him and Pitts are.
Yeah.
I will never draft them
Right.
Even when he was in Oakland, or
Never
you want to
draft.
call him
because he
you
can't
know,
stay
Vegas
healthy.
now.
Yeah.
Vegas.
He
when he
can't
was in
stay
Oakland,
healthy.
but that's
Yeah.
when he was good.
Yeah, I guess so.
He's always hurt.
Wow. But that's our starts and sits, kind of our advice. You know, take what you will. I mean,
Don't listen to Ian.
yeah, listen to Burrow. I mean, he's popping off.
Literally, he's popping
9
something down there.
points. He's doing something. He's popping something. But as always, appreciate Jeff coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, you know,
Thanks,
it's
Jeff.
always good to have a different perspective, point of view. Tell us what you guys think. And Tom, send him off.
Yeah, as always, like, subscribe, let us know who you would start and sit, and you know, as we always lead off, if we ain't your commish, stop being a